Well, Bill Gates has been busted for telling everybody that he did not make money off these COVID shots. Do you remember when he came out and said on mainstream news and different talk shows, I've spent billions to help people with vaccines? Well, in the Epstein file dump, which is being widely unnoticed because everybody's arguing about who they think is eating babies, who they think was watching the torture videos. There's so much stuff coming out every single hour about this Epstein dump that, just for me to stay focused on a really important thing that a lot of people are not seeing is that Bill Gates has been caught with his pants down lying to the world about the fact that he did not make money off these shots. And in fact, there's an entire dialogue going back and forth between Epstein, high finance bankers, the elite of the elite in the money operations, setting up charities, setting up organizations, people at the top of the food chain who know what they're doing. They are all admitting in these emails Bill Gates wants to make money off the vaccines. How do we do that? Well, we have to keep it offshore, arm's length. So I've decided today just to focus on this one story and show you the proof while not getting distracted that we know that the Clintons have been asked to testify. They actually have to now because Bill Clinton is in this email dump with so many images of him with what look like underage girls that he now has to testify or he'll go to jail. He has to testify with Congress. So that's good. And yes, I am following all the Nicki Minaj stuff and I am following all the stuff about people going back and forth about, hey, we really enjoyed that grape soda and pizza. Thanks for letting us do that. I mean, come on, do that. These millionaires are thanking each other for ordering some cheap ass pizza and going out of their way for saying, thank you for letting us do that. All this stuff that people have been saying about these people is turning out to be true. There's people saying, I enjoyed that torture video and also mentioning about the grape soda and pizza. Someone says to Epstein, nobody understands our need for this grape soda and pizza. A lot of gross things are happening. I am trying to keep up. But again, had there not been all this other stuff going on, normies would realize that Bill Gates has completely lied to the public about not making money off these vaccines. And so I don't know why the general public would ever trust Gates again with anything when he stares straight into the camera and told the world it's a conspiracy theory that he makes money off these vaccines. So let's get started on showing that. Okay, here's the author that posted about it on Twitter. And he's written a very, very long article that I'm going to go through, but I can't read the entire thing because you guys will tune out. So I'm going to pull out the most important parts that show what a scammer Bill and the finance industry around him are and how they set this all up just prior to COVID. One, the DOJ just released thousands of pages of Epstein files, and thank you, Sayer G. And buried inside them may be one of the biggest bombshells no one is talking about. Well, some people are now, but the blueprint for a 20-year financial architecture designed to turn pandemics into a profit center. Offshore vaccine funds, pandemic reinsurance triggers. I'd never even heard of reinsurance before this. What they mean is if someone declares a pandemic of any kind of importance, a whole bunch of people make money right away. It's this weird setup of a trigger. So someone declares a pandemic and these guys get rich. This is before they've even gone through everything to do with the pandemic. So yeah, pandemic reinsurance triggers donor advised fund structures designed to profit under the cover of charity. These guys set this whole thing up under the cover of charity. And Bill Gates thought that the normies out there and the rest would just go, oh, okay, well, we can't see how you did it. So you're right, Bill, you made no money off these vaccines. Well, it's right in here. I hope this is actually the final downfall of Bill Gates. We'll see. Simulation programs, career pipelines into pharma, and the World Economic Forum, all built years before COVID-19, all running through Gates, JP Morgan, and Epstein. We now have the documents. So here's him pulling the stuff out for Twitter, but I am going to show you the actual article. So Jeffrey Epstein emailed Mary Erdos, CEO of JP Morgan's 2 trillion asset management division, outlining a Gates-linked donor-advised fund. His instructions: however, we should be ready with an offshore arm, especially for vaccines. Because they knew that Bill wanted to make it look like he was just paying for them. The CEO of JP Morgan Asset Management didn't flag compliance. She asked for answers before the 31st. She got them the same night from a convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. It's amazing, guys, how Epstein is literally in the middle of setting up everything that's gray for all these elites. Now we know why all these elites are scared of Epstein, because he has so much dirt on them. And honestly, if the prostitute Russian STD thing isn't enough to bring Gates down, maybe it's not. This should. The normies should never, ever trust Gates again with anything he says. So here's the emails. He highlights what he's talking about. And in the same month, same email chain, they say the quiet part out loud, Epstein writes to Staley and Erdos, the tension is making money from a charitable organization. Therefore, the money making parts needs to be at arm's length. The tension is making money from a charitable org. Oh my gosh. You think? So the architect of this structure, convicted of sex crimes against minors, so yes, Gates, all these bankers knew that he was a convicted pedophile, is explicitly acknowledging that the vehicle is designed to generate profit under the legal cover of charity. Here it is. He highlights it. So, pandemic as an investment category. May 2017, just 3 years before COVID, Boris Nikolic, Bill Gates' chief science and tech advisor, emails Epstein and Gates about donor advised funds and rights. It might be a great path forward for some key areas such as energy, pandemic. Pandemic, just listed like energy investment, a standing investment vertical, not an emergency, a portfolio strategy. Here it is, Boris to Jeffrey. And then the parametric trigger, Jan 2017, an iMessage thread from Epstein's phone. An associate lists career options and one stands out. Quote, join Swiss reinsurance team developing health products. Did one for pandemics, helped develop parametric trigger. A parametric trigger equals a financial instrument that automatically pays out when a pandemic's declared. But guys, Gates just wants to help you and your children. So developed by someone in Epstein's career placement network. 6 months later, the World Bank issued its first ever pandemic catastrophe bonds structured by Swiss Re with exactly these triggers. Coronavirus was listed apparel. Gates requested Epstein in writing. In 2013, 5 years after Epstein's conviction, an agreement letter addressed to William Gates stated that Gates specifically requested that Jeffrey Epstein personally serve as the representative of Boris Nikolic. Gates waives conflicts of interest, provides broad indemnification in writing. He had access to every law firm, every advisor, every institution on earth, but he chose a registered sex offender and put it on paper. Guys, it's because they know that Epstein will do the dirty deeds. He will do all this stuff and not tell anyone about it. They were all forced to use this dirty bird to get their dirty stuff done. The question you weren't supposed to ask: nobody builds a fire station after the fire. What these docs reveal is a fire station built beside a factory that stores accelerants, owned by the same people who wrote the building code. Patents, simulations, reinsurance triggers, offshore vehicles, career pipelines, all operational before COVID and just before COVID. The question is, what structural safeguard existed to ensure they didn't profit from it? So, of course, this guy can't say they planned it because he has no proof so far. Maybe more will come out in these emails. I don't know. Okay, so like I said, this is very long. So I'm going to pull out what I think are the most important parts. So the Epstein files illuminate a 20-year architecture behind pandemics as a business model, with Bill Gates at the center of the network. And somewhere in here, it talks about Bill wanting, so Epstein and them talking about it, Bill wanting, I think it was around 7%, and that Bill is getting emotionally irritated. And there's a percentage actually spoken about somewhere in this very long article. I hope I can find it. So, in the summary, he talks about how they speak about vaccines as capital strategy. Not saving lives, but just capital strategy. Internal JP Morgan emails from 2011 showed Jeff Epstein advising the bank's most senior executives on how to pitch a Gates anchored donor advised fund, insisting the presentation include the phrase additional money for vaccines and directing the creation of an offshore arm especially for vaccines. Pandemics as a funding vertical. A 2017 email thread between Epstein, Gates, and Boris names pandemic as a key area for donor advised fund structures 3 years before COVID. Pandemic simulation as a career currency. A Jan 2017 iMessage thread from Epstein phones shows an associate listing pandemics just did pandemic simulation as a professional credential, while simultaneously discussing career placement into Gates' private office, Boris Nikolic's Biomatics Capital, Merck's vaccine team, and Swiss Re's pandemic reinsurance products. I mean, they're setting this up that they know they can make bank by declaring a pandemic. And don't forget, Gates was the major person that was donating to Facebook to make sure that Facebook censored and kicked off anybody questioning his narrative. So, crisis as an inevitable asset. A Gates Foundation briefing describes the Global Health Investment Fund as an impact investment vehicle targeting, here it is, 5 to 7% returns on drugs and vaccines, backed by a 60% principal guarantee. Simulation as technical deliverable. A 2017 internal scope document from BGC3, Gates' private office, lists strain pandemic simulation alongside neurotechnology and national defense applications. A 2015 Gates Foundation letter confirms pandemic preparedness coordination with the Internal Peace Institute, led by Terj Rod Larson, a documented Epstein dinner guest, while Epstein separately feeds Rod Larson Gates' public pandemic messaging. And yes, this was the architecture we were not meant to notice. That Gates denied, and it's all there now. There's the parametric trigger. So what's interesting here is he talks about how the people building these structures were not public health officials, not doctors reacting to emergency threats. They were financiers, private office strategists, pharma executives, and convicted intermediaries working inside boardrooms at JP Morgan, drafting these documents at Gates' private office, coordinating across offshore jurisdictions, and brokering career placements into vax teams and pandemic reinsurance units. It's a big club, guys, and we ain't in it. They just wanted to force you to take this shit. What are the sponsors' objectives? Is anonymity important? Is JP Morgan expected to advise or implement? This is a major Wall Street bank asking a convicted sex offender to define the architecture of a Gates linked so called charitable fund. So JP Morgan wasn't just offering Epstein a seat at the table, they were asking him to design the table. And here, the sentence that should stop you, quote, a silo based proposal that will get Bill more money for vaccines. There it is. And here, in talking about that they need an offshore arm, he projects billions of dollars in the first 2 years and tens of billions by year 4. So that's Epstein that said that. The timeline, he says, depends only on JP Morgan's ability to organize, legal structure, internet presence, staffing, The bottleneck is not Bill Gates, it is not the donors, it's the bank's capacity to build what Epstein wants. And the CEO of JP Morgan's 2 trillion asset management division did not ask compliance to review this. She did not flag the source. She just asked for answers before the 31st and got them the same night from Jeff. And here's the tension is making money from a charitable org. Therefore, the money making part needs to be arm's length, and they're figuring out how they can do that. So, this explicitly acknowledges that the vehicle is designed to generate profit under the legal cover of charity. And then Bill is emotionally frustrated. Epstein, writing to Erdos, describes Gates' emotional state regarding the pace of the project. Bill is terribly frustrated. He would like to boost some of the things that are working without taking away from those that are not. Therefore, explaining that this would allow additional money for vaccines must be included in the presentation. His obsession, his absolute obsession with vaccines, making money off them. So here they talk about how when crisis just becomes an asset class, crisis pays. A confidential 15-page briefing prepared by JP Morgan hosted panel in 2013 describes the Global Health Investment Fund as the first investment fund focused on global health drug and vax development. The fund explicitly targets financial returns in the range of 5 to 7% while returning all investor capital. That's what's important. They talk about the initial capital. Don't worry, you guys, you'll get back. So, all these people saying we're doing this for the greater good because we're so rich, we want to give back to planet Earth. Yeah, no. The Gates Foundation and other partners provide a 60% guarantee of principal, meaning investors could participate in the vax development with the majority of their downside absorbed by philanthropic and sovereign capital. So, this is the structural logic of pandemic finance laid bare: public risk, philanthropic backstop, private upside. Private, meaning they didn't think that these emails would be leaked. And it mentions here that everything runs through Epstein's dining room, this big club, and we ain't in it. And here, pandemic is now a category, not an event. So, what this shows is these guys have to declare pandemics because they've set the whole thing up. They want to make their money, they want to make investment back. And so, this is a grift. They do this so the rich can get richer and the rest of us have our businesses closed and our human rights taken away. They talk about how join the Merck team for 6 to 12 months in their vaccine team. Big push for Gardasil vaccine HPV. Would have to base it in Rwanda. Merck's vaccine team, Gardasil, is a direct pipeline from Epstein's phone to PharmaVax operations. So when you guys are putting this stuff into the veins of your children, this Gardasil HPV vax, know that Epstein set that up. And here's something significant. Swiss Re is one of the world's largest reinsurance companies. A parametric trigger is an automated financial mechanism that pays out when a predefined threshold is crossed. In this case, a pandemic declaration. The associate is describing having helped develop a financial product that automatically generates payouts when a pandemic's declared, and Epstein's network is the career placement vehicle. It also mentions join the World Economic Forum as chief science advisor to Klaus Schwab and join Martin Sorrell team and help develop media tech to understand and counteract international government fragility. So here's the full list that's integrated into all of this. Gates, Nicolix Fund, Merck's Vax Team, Swiss Re's Pandemic Products, the World Economic Forum, the Rockefeller Foundation, the World Bank, Goldman Sachs, Alibaba, MasterCard, and TPG Capital. And you became an outcast to society if you saw through this garbage. Every major node in the pandemic preparedness to profit pipeline appears on a single career menu brokered through convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein in his text messages. So basically, they're figuring out who they can book to become part of these groups that run this whole thing. And they're all knowing that this is a big setup to make money. They've put it all in place. So the teams are already there and ready. So when the news is like, oh, this guy was just hired to deal with this, and that woman was just hired to deal with this, and oh, they're all scrambling to become a part of, the 2020 pandemic crew that's going to solve the crisis. No, no, they were all set in place before, and they all were making backroom deals. So thank you to Sayer G. You can find him on Substack, sayerji.substack.com if you'd like to follow him. He did the deep dive, even though there's way more salacious stuff out there about who was abusing who, but we cannot let this one go unnoticed. And this should be the downfall of Bill Gates, because if he can lie to us about that, we should assume that he does not care about anybody or their children or what happens to them from these so-called products. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Odessa Orlowitz with Liberty Talk Canada. Let's get the word out there. Thank you so much. Did you know if the banks do a bail-in, they can take the contents in your bank vault? But storing your gold and silver at home could be a huge security risk. Every day, our dollar is worth less and less. Inflation is stealing the only savings families have. Now more than ever, it's so important to hedge the savings you've worked so hard for. Banks have been failing all over the world, and social credit has all but arrived. But did you know you can do wholesale price vaulting and retail delivery from the most prestigious, reliable company in Canada? Did you also know if you decide to leave Canada, your gold and silver can be sent right to you after you arrive to your destination? The only company I personally use and trust are those awake guys at New World Precious Metals. Take control of your family's future. You can just click the link in my show description or type in the web address libertytalkcanada.ca/gold to get on their mailing list, attend their webinar, or book an appointment. Let them know Odessa sent you.